Hi, Warren. This one's a fun one. Thomas Kamei is here. He's a 27-year-old shareholder from Kentfield, California. And I should preface this question by saying that he was here 17 years ago. At 10 years old, asked you a question from the audience, asking you if the internet might hurt some of Berkshire's investments. At the time, you said you wanted to see how things would play out. He's now updated the question. What do you think about the implications of artificial intelligence on Berkshire's businesses beyond autonomous driving and Geico, which you've talked about already? In your conversations with Bill Gates, have you thought through which other businesses will be most impacted? And do you think Berkshire's current businesses will have significantly more or less employees a decade from now as a function of artificial intelligence?
Well,
we've mixed a couple questions together.
Yeah. I certainly have no special insights on artificial intelligence, but I will bet a lot of things happen in that field in the next couple of decades and probably a shorter time frame. They should lead, I would certainly think, but again, I don't bring much to this party, but I would certainly think they would result in significantly less employment in certain areas, but that's good for society. And it may not be good for a given business, but let's take it to the extreme. Let's assume one person could push a button and essentially, through various machines, robotics, all kinds of things, turn out all of the output we have in this country. So there's just as much output as we have. It's all being done by, instead of 150 some million people being employed, one person. Is the world better off or not? Well, it certainly would involve less hours a week of work per week and so on. I mean, it would be a good thing, but it would require enormous transformation in how people relate to each other, what they expect of government, all kinds of things. And of course, as a practical matter, more than one person would keep working. But pushing the idea that way is one of the, you'd certainly think that's one of the consequences of making great progress in artificial intelligence. And that's enormously pro-social eventually. It's enormously disruptive in other ways, and it can have huge problems in terms of a democracy and how it reacts to that. It's similar to the problem we have in trade, where trade is beneficial to society, but the people that see the benefits day by day of trade don't see a price at Walmart on socks or whatever they're importing that says, you're paying X, but you would pay X plus so many cents if you bought this domestically. So they're getting these small benefits and invisible benefits, and the guy that gets hurt by it, who's the roadkill of free trade, feels it very specifically, and that translates into politics. And so it gets very uncertain as to how the world would adjust, in my view, to great increases in productivity. And without knowing a thing about it, I would think that artificial intelligence would have that hugely beneficial social effect, but a very unpredictable political effect if it came in fast, which I think it could. Charlie?
Well, you're painting a very funny world where everybody's engaged in trade, and the trade is I give you golf lessons and you dye my hair. And that would be a world kind of like the royal family of Kuwait or something. And I don't think it would be good for America to have everything produced by one person and the rest of us just engaged in leisure.
How about if we just got twice as productive?
What?
How about if we got twice as productive in a short period of time, so that 75 million people could do what 150 million people are doing now?
I think you'd be amazed how quickly people would react to that.
In what way?
Favorably. That's what happened during the period which everybody remembers with such affection, back in the Eisenhower years, 5% a year or something. People loved it. Nobody complained that they were getting air conditioning and they didn't have it before. Nobody wanted to go back to stinking, sweating nights in the South.
Well, if you cut everybody's hours in half, it's one thing. But if you fire half the people, and the other people keep working, I just think it gets very unpredictable. I mean, I think we saw some of that in this election because I think that
Well, we've adjusted to an enormous amount of it. It just came along a few percent per year.
well, and the question then is,
I don't think
if
you
it
have
come-
to
if it
worry.
came
I don't
back-
think you have to worry about it coming out at 25% a year. You know, I think you have to worry about it. You're going to get less than 2% a year. That's what's worrisome.
Okay, we'll move on. But it will be, it's an absolutely fascinating subject to see what happens with this, but it gets very, very hard to predict. If in some way, we've got 36,000 people, say, employed at GEICO, and if you could do the same, perform all the same functions, or virtually all the same functions even, and do it with 5,000 or 10,000 people, and it came on quickly, and the same thing was happening in a great many other areas. I don't think we've ever experienced anything quite like that, and maybe we won't experience anything like it in the future. I don't know that much about AI, but
I don't think you have to worry about that.
well, that's because I'm 86.
It's not going to come that quickly.
Now, Ray, in the book, you talk about how you love and have benefited from artificial intelligence, but you also talk about the importance of the people behind those computers. What's your take on artificial intelligence in terms of what it means for Wall Street jobs and the broader global economy?
I've learned over the last 20 years to take that decision-making can be put into algorithms. In other words, the process was come up with a principle of what you would do in a certain set of circumstances, write those criteria down, and then convert those principles into algorithms. And then I learned that the computer operating in parallel with me was extremely powerful. That's how we make all of our investment decisions, and that's also how we're making a lot of the people decisions. And I know the fact that you're going to see this happen pervasively. In other words, algorithmic decision-making are going to produce better decision-making and replace a lot of people. And you're seeing this happen in many of the ways we execute orders and our transactions and so on. That much, much better decision-making in many ways. I also think that a big question is how do you come up with those algorithms? In other words, there is machine learning. And the question is whether one has understanding behind those algorithms. Because I learned in the markets before that for a long time, I've watched many firms go broke because they were doing this machine learning and algorithmic decision-making because they didn't have the understanding, a deep understanding of the cause-effect relationships. They bet that the things that happened in the past would happen in the future. So I think that we're going to see a lot more of that. I'm very excited about that. It has implications in terms of employment and so on, but it is also dangerous because if you, two rules for danger, two red flags. Do you understand the criteria that are in those algorithms so that you can say, that's logical and I buy into it? Or are you blindly following what the algorithms that have been determined by machine learning come? If you're doing the first, and if the future is different than it has been in the past, because the past is what those algorithms were based on. If the future can be different from the past, and you don't understand the deep logic, you are probably going to blow up or have a problem with that. And so I think that that's going to be an issue of our society going forward.
Somebody asked me to ask you this. We talked about workforce today, but they asked me, are robots going to take our jobs, everybody's jobs in the future? Or how much do you see artificial intelligence coming into the workplace?
Well, first of all, I think on the artificial intelligence front, I have exposure to the very most cutting edge AI. And I think people should be really concerned about it. I keep sounding the alarm bell, but until people see like robots going down the street killing people, like they don't know how to react, because it seems so ethereal. I think we should be really concerned about AI, and I think we should. AI is a rare case where I think we need to be proactive in regulation instead of reactive. Because I think by the time we are reactive in AI regulation, it's too late. And normally the way regulations are set up is that a whole bunch of bad things happen, there's a public outcry, and then after many years, a regulatory agency is set up to regulate that industry. And there's a bunch of opposition from companies who don't like being told what to do by regulators. Anyway, it takes forever. That in the past has been bad, but not something which represented a fundamental risk to the existence of civilization. AI is a fundamental risk to the existence of human civilization. In a way that car accidents, airplane crashes, faulty drugs, or bad food were not. They were harmful to a set of individuals within society, of course, but they were not harmful to society as a whole. AI is a fundamental existential risk for human civilization, and I don't think people fully appreciate that. It's not fun being regulated. It's not, it can be pretty irksome, but in the car business, we get regulated by Department of Transport, by EPA, and a bunch of others, and there's regulatory agencies in every country. In space, we get regulated by FAA, But if you ask the average person, hey, do you want to get rid of the FAA and just like take a chance on manufacturers not cutting corners on the aircraft because profits were down that quarter? I was like, hell no. That sounds terrible. So I think even people who are extremely like libertarian free market, they'd be like, yeah, we should probably have somebody keeping an eye on the aircraft companies, making sure they build a good aircraft and good cars and that kind of thing. So, I think there's a role for regulators. That's very important. And I'm against overregulation for sure. But man, I think we've got to get on that with AI pronto. So there'll certainly be a lot of job disruption. Because what's going to happen is robots will be able to do everything better than us. I'm including, all of us, Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what to do about this. This is really like the scariest problem to me, I'll tell you. So I really think we need government regulation here, just because this is, ensuring the public good is served. Because you've got companies that are racing, that they kind of have to race to build AI, or they're going to be made uncompetitive. Essentially, if your competitor is racing to build AI and you don't, they will crush you. So then you're like, we don't want to be crushed. So, I guess we need to build it too. That's where you need the regulators to come in and say, hey guys, you all need to really, just pause and make sure this is safe. And like when it's cool and and the regulators are convinced that it's safe to proceed, then you can go. But otherwise, slow down. But you kind of need the regulators to do that for all the teams in the game. Otherwise, the shareholders will be saying like, hey, why aren't you developing AI faster? Because your competitor is. I'm like, okay, we better do that. Anyway, so it's like, there's like something like 12% of jobs are transport. Transport will be one of the first things to go fully autonomous. But when I say everything, like the robots will be able to do everything, bar nothing.
I ask you, what is the most important project or the most important topic for you to deal with in the foreseeable future? And you said that is truly the role that AI is going to play in our society. Could you explain why, and why that is a big opportunity, but also seems to worry you?
Yeah, I think, well, I mean, humans have been the smartest creature on Earth for a long time, and that is going to change with what's typically called artificial general intelligence. So this is, say, an AI that is smarter than a human in every way, could even simulate a human. This is something we should be concerned about. I think there should be government oversight of AI developments, especially super advanced AI. It's just, this is anything that is a potential danger to the public. We generally agree that this should have government oversight to ensure that the public safety is taken care of.
Because you fear that one day mankind could serve the machines and not the other way around?
Honestly, when I see people on their phones, I think we're already serving the machine. Yeah, it's like everyone's answering the questions. You know, every time you do a search or add information, you're sort of building this, the digital group mind. The advent of artificial general intelligence is called the singularity for a reason, because just like a black hole, which is a singularity, it's difficult to predict what will happen. So it's not as though the advent of AGI is necessarily bad, but it's bad as one of the possible outcomes.
And when is singularity in the definition of Ray Kurzweil going to happen?
Well, I think you're saying he's predicting 2025. I think that's reasonably accurate.
And how can it be avoided that is then more a threat for humanity than an opportunity? Is it a question of governance, so that there is not too much power in one or in few hands? Or how would you make sure that it goes into the right direction?
I think we should have a government oversight, just like we do. We have government oversight and regulation of cars and aircraft and food and pharmaceuticals. These are all, there are regulators that oversee these developments to ensure public safety. And I think digital superintelligence would also be potentially a public safety risk. And so it should be, I think it's very important for regulators to keep an eye on that.
Who should own the data by then?
I think everyone should own their own data. Like, individuals should own their data. And they certainly shouldn't be tricked by some terms and conditions of a website and suddenly you don't own your data. That's crazy. Who reads those terms and conditions anyway? I think it's just, like, we wouldn't let people develop a nuclear bomb in the backyard just for the hell of it, That seems crazy. So digital superintelligence, I think, has the potential to be more dangerous than a nuclear bomb. So we should somebody should be keeping an eye. We can't have the inmates running the asylum here.
Which is a global issue, because if we do well, but China has other rules and a different regulatory framework, that is another challenge.
I generally this is one of the rebuttals I get from those developing AI. And Tesla is also developing a form of AI with self-driving, but it's a very narrow form of AI. Just like the car's not going to wake up one day and take over the world. But the rebuttal I get is like, well, China's going to have unfettered AI development, and so if we have regulations and that slows us down, then China will have it. And I'm like, look, from my conversations with government officials in China, they're quite concerned about AI as well, and in fact, they're probably more likely to have good oversight than I think other countries.